Welcome back for another round of Charlie Brown politics. Everybody, let's talk about Julian Assange. Okay, a lot of news has been going on about him lately. Recent news and his impending extradition to the United States has come about. A lot of things are going on. So I just want to do a video about Julian and show my solidarity and support. If you don't know who Julian is, what are you doing? And if you're a follower of my show or the channel or channels like mine, you probably already know the full rundown. But just to give a quick and brief history, Julian is a publisher. He is the founder and creator of WikiLeaks. He is a journalist, and a lot of us on the left, or the what I would call the real left, people like Hardlands Media, Revolutionary Blackout, people on the Jimmy Dore plantation, stuff like that. We would all say that Julian is the most important, the greatest publisher and journalist of our time. Um, he exposed the war crimes of the U.S. War machine, the military industrial complex. He showed what is really going on. The famous leaked video where the U.S. helicopter guns down a bunch of civilians, that went extremely viral. So he was also involved in the email dumps that were Hillary Clinton's emails in the 2016 election, and that was huge. Anyway, he exposed the war crimes of the U.S. government, and of course, what do you expect? That all knowing eye gets placed upon Julian, and the powers that be got to work pretty quickly because they do not like it when you tell people the truth about what's really going on. And so he gets a few bullshit charges put on him, like some sexual assault charges. He has to take, I'm losing the right word for it, refuge in the Ecuadorian embassy in London. And he was there for a long, long time. I want to say at least 10 years. But so he was not allowed to leave. If he left that embassy, they would have arrested him and extradited him, probably right to the U.S. on the spot. And so that went on for a while, but for the past 5 years, since 2019, Julian has been kept in the Belmarsh prison in London. And this is a high security prison where they keep terrorists and murderers and some really hard people, okay? Julian does not need to be there. And he's been tortured and brutalized for a very long time for exposing these war crimes. He's paying a very, very high price. Okay. And so that's kind of just a brief encapsulation of who Julian is, real quick. So he's at this Belmarsh prison, and everybody's currently waiting on these court cases to take place to see if he's going to be extradited to the United States. So some things came up, and I want to show you guys real quick. Uh, Let me bring it up real here. And so this is going to be from Consortium News. Okay. Julian's defense team is trying to get some assurances from the U.S. Assurances that they won't seek the death penalty, and the assurance that Julian, when he goes to trial, or if he goes to trial, will be issued the First Amendment freedoms that we have in the U.S. So the freedom of speech, the freedom of press, freedom of assembly, all that. But it's really the freedom of the press and the freedom of the speech. Anyway, so let me read you guys what's going on and just give you a little bit of the news that's happening with Julian. U.S. issues assurances on Assange. Updated with text of diplomatic note. The U.S. Tuesday filed assurances on the death penalty and the First Amendment, the latter of which Stella Assange, who's Julian's wife, called a non assurance. Let's just keep going and I'll explain a little bit further. The United States Embassy on Tuesday filed two assurances with the British Foreign Office, saying it would not seek the death penalty against imprisoned WikiLeaks publisher Julian Assange and would not allow Assange the ability to raise and would allow Assange the ability to raise and seek to reply upon at trial the rights and protections given under the First Amendment, according to the U.S. diplomatic note. Assange's wife, Stella Assange, said the note makes no undertaking to withdraw the prosecution's previous assertions that Julian has no First Amendment rights because he is not a U.S. citizen. Instead, she said, the U.S. has limited itself to blatant weasel words, claiming that Julian can seek to raise the First Amendment if extradited. So that's the first thing that we need to stop and point out, reiterate, is so Julian's legal team requested um, the assurance that Julian would be able to get no death penalty, and he wants to be assured that he can use the First Amendment right given to U.S. journalists and U.S. citizens, excuse me. And so the U.S. sent back a letter that was mealy mouth. You have to pay attention to the language. Always pay attention to the language. And Julian's wife pointed it blatantly. Okay, where is this thing? Seek to raise the First Amendment if extradited. So that's not blatantly saying yes, he can use it. There's 100% this is going to happen. No, this is saying, well, he can request to use it. It's not guaranteed he's going to get it. So you see what's happening here? Let's continue with this article. The note contains a hollow statement, namely that Assange can try to raise the First Amendment at trial and at sentencing, but the U.S. Department of Justice can't guarantee he would get those rights, which is precisely what it must do under British extradition law based on European Convention on Human Rights. The U.S. Department of Justice is legally restricted to assure a free speech guarantee to Assange, equivalent to Article 10 of the European Convention, which the British court is bound to follow. But without that assurance, Assange should be free, according to British Crown Prosecution Service comment on extraditions. In U.S. AID versus Alliance for Open Society, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled in 2020 that non U.S. citizens outside the U.S. don't possess constitutional rights. Both former CIA Director Mike Pompeo and Gordon Kronberg, U.S. Uh, Assange's U.S. prosecutors, have said Assange does not have First Amendment prosecution. Excuse me, Assange does not have First Amendment protection, excuse me, because of the separations of power in the United States. The executive branch's Justice Department cannot guarantee to the British courts what the U.S. Judicial branch decides about the rights of non U.S. citizens in court, said Marjorie Cohen, law professor and former president of National Lawyers Guild. Let's assume that the Biden administration does give assurances that he would be able to raise the First Amendment and that the High Court found that those assurances were significant, Cohn told Consortium News webcasts last month. That really doesn't mean anything because one of the things that the British courts don't understand is the U.S. doctrine of separation of powers. The prosecutors can give all the assurances they want, but the judiciary, another one of these three branches of government in the U.S., does not have to abide by the executive branch's claim or assurance, Cohen said. So, pretty much, this is more evidence saying that even if Julian were to get these assurances from the U.S., that these other branches in the U.S. government uh, do not have to abide by them. They don't have to pay any attention to them because we have separate powers in the U.S. So pretty much saying that these assurances would mean nothing anyway. In other words, whether Assange can rely on the First Amendment in his defense in a U.S. court is up to that court, not Kronborg or the Department of Justice, which issued the assurance on Tuesday. The United States has issued a non-assurance in relation to the First Amendment, Stella Assange has said. Let's keep going down. Assange's legal team now has the right to challenge the credibility and validity of the U.S. assurances filed on Tuesday. The U.S. would have then a right to reply to Assange's legal submissions to the court, which will be held on a hearing on Monday or on May 20th to determine whether or not to accept the U.S. assurances. If the court does, Assange can be put on a plane to the U.S. Theoretically that day. If Julian would be granted a full appeal against the Home Office's 2022 order to extradite him, Assange is wanted in the U.S. on 17 charges under the 1970 Espionage Act and on one conspiracy to commit computer intrusion. He faces up to 175 years in a U.S. dungeon. The diplomatic note does nothing to relieve our family's extreme distress about his future, his grim expectation of spending the rest of his life in isolation in U.S. Prison for publishing award winning journalism. So there's a little rundown of what's going on uh, with Julian on that note. Now, I I know that there has been some like a little bit of excitement, a little bit of talk because somebody asked President Biden, uh, "Will you pardon Julian Assange just randomly?" And he actually said, "I'll think about it." And some people got really excited about it, but a lot of us who have been in this game for a long time know that not just the Democrats, but politicians in general will kind of tell you what you want to hear, and to not take anything at face value, right? You know what I'm saying? And so let's bring up this real quick. So Biden says he's considering Australia's request to drop prosecution of WikiLeaks founder Assange. So let's see. I found this response, and this guy is great. If you don't know who he is, check him out sometime. Here we go. And George Galloway. Sorry, his name was lost my mind for a second, but he's gonna give a quick response to that, and yeah, let's just watch.
We're considering it, says Joe Biden in the Rose Garden when asked about the impending decision on whether or not to continue with the proceedings against the whistleblower, truth teller, the world's greatest publisher, Julian Assange. Although, having reviewed the video now myself, I'm wondering if he misheard and thought someone was asking him if he was on his way to the toilet. And as Israel murders the 3 sons and 3.
And so there you go. That's how we all should be taking that. Okay. Now, guys, there's a few things we can do for Julian. Okay. And this is one of those things. We have to start contacting our representatives, our elected officials, and letting them know how we feel about this. We have to um, voice our opinions and tell them that we will not be voting for them if they do not support the pardoning of Julian Assange. Okay, plain and simple. Here's a website that can help you find all the numbers and contact information that you need. Okay, it's www.usa.gov. To find it, I literally just typed in Google uh, how to find my elected officials' contact information or something generic like that. It's like a White House circuit board. I can't remember the right term for it, But there's like this number you can call. It's a answering machine type thing. You go like, "I'm from Indiana," and it'll give you the numbers for like your state senator, your congress people, all that. And so here's another way to find it. Find elected officials using a physical address. And so you can put in your address and it'll give you everything you want. Um, Here's a number for that White House switchboard: 202-456-1414. And guys, and so um, it's awkward. I get it. I actually called well and have been calling, but it's a little awkward at first. I get it. You From my experiences, I have not talked to an actual person. I have just called, nobody answers, and you leave a message. And just get right to the point, guys. Free Julian Assange. He's a journalist, a publisher. He's not even an American citizen. All he does is expose the war crimes of the U.S. government, and he needs to be free. So we got to keep pushing on this, guys. It's it's not looking great for Julian. I've thought he's going to be extradited for quite a while, but we got to keep bringing that ruckus, as AOC would say. Oh God, I don't even know why that came up to me. Forgive me, everybody, for bringing that bitch's name up in this video. But keep pushing, keep fighting. We have to keep speaking out because this this is a warning to everybody in the media sector, okay? Anybody doing independent journalism, anybody that wants to have a critical thought and idea against the establishment, against the main narrative, okay? We've seen it time and time and time again, okay? They're trying to use this to scare us, to make sure that nobody else does what WikiLeaks has done, and that is just expose the corruption, the rot of our system. And God bless Julian. Keep fighting out there, homie. So with that being said, guys, let's wrap this video up. If you're still watching, thank you all. I know it's been a fat minute since I put out a video. It's farming season, I and things are just busy for me right now. So please just stay patient with me, everybody. And so, yeah, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. And I will catch everybody on the next episode of Charlie Brown Politics. Free Assange, free Palestine. Thank you.